Hi everybody. Welcome to our channel, The Scary Tales. Our scary and horror stories are designed to send chills down your spine. Enjoy the spine-tingling stories thrill. Here's your horror stories about Airbnb. 1. The Hidden Cameras. A young couple, Jake and Emily, booked a cozy Airbnb in a quiet suburban neighborhood for a romantic weekend getaway. The house was beautifully decorated, and everything seemed perfect, until Jake noticed something strange about the smoke detector above their bed. It looked bulkier than usual. Suspicious, he took a closer look and discovered a tiny lens inside. Panicking, they searched the house and found 2 more hidden cameras, one in the bathroom vent and another inside the living room clock. They immediately called the police and the Airbnb host. To their horror, the host denied everything, but when the police investigated, they found footage of previous guests stored on a hidden hard drive. The host was arrested, but Jake and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been watching them the entire time. 2. The Basement Room. Anna, a solo traveler, booked a cheap Airbnb in a historic house. The listing mentioned a private room with a shared bathroom, but when she arrived, the host, an older man named Gerald, acted oddly friendly, too friendly. He insisted on giving her a tour and showed her every room except the basement, which had a large, rusted padlock. That night, Anna heard strange noises, scraping sounds coming from below. Ignoring it, she tried to sleep, but around 3 a.m., she heard slow, deliberate footsteps coming up the basement stairs. Her door handle jiggled. Terrified, she bolted up and blocked the door with a chair. The noises stopped. She barely slept and left at sunrise. Later, she checked the reviews again and noticed one review mentioning a previous guest disappearing. When she reported her experience to Airbnb, she found out the listing had been taken down. The police later discovered a hidden passage leading from the basement to the guests' rooms. 3. The Doppelganger Host. Mark and his friends rented an Airbnb cabin in the woods for a weekend retreat. When they arrived, the host, Daniel, greeted them warmly, gave them the key, and left. That night, they heard someone walking around outside. Thinking it was an animal, they brushed it off. The next morning, Mark saw a man watching them from the trees. To his shock, the man looked exactly like Daniel. But Daniel had left the day before, right? When they called the host's number, Daniel picked up and casually told them he was out of town and wouldn't be back until after their stay. Panicked, the group packed up and fled. They later found out that no one else was supposed to be on the property, and that the real Daniel had never met them in person. Who, or what, had greeted them? 4. The Room That Didn't Exist. Lisa and her friends booked a large Airbnb for a weekend getaway. The house was spacious, with 5 bedrooms listed in the description. As they explored, Lisa noticed something strange. The house only had 4 bedrooms. Confused, they double-checked the listing. It clearly said 5. Lisa messaged the host, who reassured her that all rooms were there and suggested they look harder. That night, Lisa awoke to a faint tapping sound coming from the wall. She put her ear against it and heard breathing. The next morning, they searched the house again and discovered a hidden door behind a bookshelf. Inside was a dusty, windowless room with a recently used mattress and food wrappers. Panicked, they left immediately. The host never answered their messages again. 5. The last guest never left. David, a business traveler, checked into a small Airbnb apartment for a week-long stay. The unit was modern and clean, but something felt off. He kept finding drawers slightly open and objects moved from where he left them. One night, he woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom and saw a shadow moving past the doorway. Thinking it was an intruder, he grabbed his phone and searched the apartment. Nothing. Every door and window was locked. The next night, he set up his phone to record while he slept. The footage the next morning made his blood run cold, a man slowly emerging from the attic hatch, watching David sleep for hours, then retreating back up. He fled and reported it to the police. They found an old tenant living in the crawlspace, surviving off Airbnb guests' food. 6. The Doll Collector. A couple, Mike and Sarah, booked a quaint countryside Airbnb with great reviews. The listing had no mention of anything unusual, but when they arrived, they found hundreds of dolls lined up in every room. Porcelain dolls, rag dolls, plastic baby dolls, all staring at them. The host, an elderly woman, assured them the dolls were harmless and part of her collection. Trying to brush off their unease, they went to bed. At 3 a.m., Sarah woke up to the sound of soft giggling. She nudged Mike awake, but he dismissed it as the wind. That's when they both noticed some of the dolls had moved. One, in particular, was now sitting at the foot of their bed, its glass eyes staring at them. They grabbed their bags and left immediately. Later, they found a single doll in their car's backseat, one they were sure wasn't there before. 7. The Wrong Guest List. James and his wife booked a remote cabin on Airbnb for a peaceful getaway. Upon arrival, they were surprised to find that the house was already unlocked. Inside, everything seemed fine, until they found a guest book on the kitchen table. It had a list of previous guests, but what terrified them was the last page. James Sarah February 10th to 14th, current date. Departing never. Thinking it was a prank, they tried to laugh it off, until Sarah found another note taped inside the bedroom closet. It read, "Why did you come here? You weren't supposed to." They left immediately, but when they checked the listing again, it had been removed from Airbnb. 8. The host who wasn't the host. A group of friends rented a beach house for the weekend. The Airbnb host sent them a code for the key lockbox and instructions to make themselves at home. When they arrived, everything seemed normal, until, on the second night, a man unlocked the front door and walked in. The group froze in fear as the man, wearing a janitor's uniform, calmly said, "I just came to check on you." One of the friends, Chris, immediately called the Airbnb host. When they finally picked up, the host sounded confused and said, "I never sent anyone to check on you." The man laughed and said, "I know." Then, he walked back outside. When they checked the house later, they found a second set of keys, hidden under the couch. Who else had access? 9. The night visitor. Tina, a solo traveler, booked a small Airbnb in a quiet neighborhood. Everything was great until, on the second night, she woke up to the feeling of someone pulling her blankets off. At first, she thought it was a dream, but then, she heard soft breathing. She reached for her phone's flashlight and pointed it toward the corner of the room. There stood a woman in a white dress, barefoot, with wild hair, staring at her. Tina screamed and turned on all the lights. The woman was gone. Freaked out, she messaged the Airbnb host, who responded almost instantly. "Oh no. Did you see her too?" She packed up and left immediately. 10. The locked room. Sam and his girlfriend booked a beautiful Victorian-style Airbnb. The house had a locked door that the host specifically told them not to open. Naturally, that made them even more curious. The first night was normal, but the second night, Sam swore he heard whispering coming from behind the locked door. He put his ear against it and heard scraping sounds, like someone dragging something heavy. The next morning, the door was slightly open. Inside, they found an old rocking chair still moving. On the walls, dozens of black and white photographs of sleeping guests, including one of them, from the night before. They ran out without looking back. The end.